Jordan Demko has taught science the last 10 years at a classical Christian school and is currently the youth pastor at Exeter Bible Fellowship Church in Reading, Pennsylvania. He is married to his wife, Rebecca, and they have 5 kids.
Good morning, everyone. I think it's really fitting for me to kind of wrap up these talks with a topic like this, as it ties a nice, neat little bow on everything that has been said about apologetics. So, by way of introduction, then, over the years, something that really I've encountered is that there's a type of thinking today, even amongst Christians, where a thinking that has crept into the minds of even Christians that is largely influenced by secular science, by Darwinism. And what I've found is that even amongst the evangelical church, that we often just accept the findings of modern science uncritically. If you'll just bear with me, as I think back to COVID days, really COVID madness, I remember having one conversation which ended like this. I was feeling a lot of pressure, and the Christian who I was talking to, he ended the conversation this way. He says, well, I just trust the science. That's what he told me. And I was really shocked. He was obviously implying that I didn't trust the science. Well, wait a second. I love science. I've been teaching science for 10 years. I am a celebrator of science. And then it dawned on me. That wasn't the issue. The issue wasn't that I didn't trust science. No, here was the issue. It was that I didn't trust the science, but I didn't submit to the conclusions regardless of the interpretation of the data. Now, that was the issue. But what does Paul say? He says, don't be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of our minds. Now, why is this so important? Well, because the world has a mold, and they want us to conform to that mold. They want to press us into that mold. And Paul says, don't do it. Don't let the world press you into its mold. Well, here's the problem. That mold, in today's cultural age, has been forged in the irons of secular science. So, before I go any further, let's define our terms. In today's talk, what do I mean? What do I mean when I say trust the science? Well, I'll start with the negative. What I don't mean is, I don't mean any specific branch or field of study. I'm not talking about a specific topic. No, I'm doing what has been done by many of the speakers, and that is, I'm going to the starting point. I'm going to the foundation, the starting assumption. See, the starting assumption of secular science, when you go down to the basement and you inspect the walls and you're checking out the foundation, there you will find Darwinism. There you will find biological, mistake-ridden evolution. And that is the lens by which they see all the facts. That's their filter. So for this talk, I'm defining science, the worldview, in this way. An unguided, random evolutionary process by which man, through mutation, purposely arose from the void. Now that's the starting point. That's the starting point of secular science. Okay? And what do we do? Well, okay, the war that's going on for a Christian, it's centering around this. That's the war. We don't have weapons like tanks and guns and nothing like that. No, this war is on the battleground of the mind. So we destroy arguments. We destroy these lofty opinions that are raised against the knowledge of God. The Christian mind takes every thought captive. In other words, you dismantle the fortress walls, you destroy the castle wall, and once those walls are destroyed, then you can go in and take your captives. That's the Christian mind. So, the cult of science, it may be, I don't know, maybe jarring to hear those terms. It's like, oh boy, here's some fundamentalist, reformed guy coming in calling science a cult, like every stereotype. Science is the devil, something like that. Well, I mean, they invited me here. Chris asked me to come. So let me make my case. Almost 100 years ago, J. Gresham Machen said this. Listen very carefully. It seems to be such a promising solution of our difficulties just to say that science and religion belong in two entirely different spheres and can never by any chance come into conflict. It seems to be so easy for religion to purchase peace by abandoning to science the whole sphere of facts in order to retain for itself merely a sphere of feelings and ideals. Now, I found that to be a fascinating statement. What's being said? J. Gresham Machen saw the fruit of where Darwinism would lead. He knew where things were going. And as the churches became more and more liberal, well, the churchmen of that day, they said, okay, you have the sphere of science over here, and man, we can't contend with that. We can't touch that. So what do? We have that sphere over there, and then over here, these churchmen said, okay, well, here's the spiritual and the moral. And they hunkered down in their shelter, in the pews, and then they mummified themselves. And they thought, when they're in this bunker, nothing could touch them. Nothing could touch them. Not secular science, nothing. They're in the spiritual and the moral realm, and nothing could pluck them out of their defense. J. Gresham Machen said, that is strategic retreat. He said, it's a disaster. And what are we seeing today? You drive through the city of Reading, and you know what you'll see? Real estate boards on all of these churches. They ought to give them to you, Joel, in your church. So, let's expand here. I made this chart up, okay? Time's not going to allow me to go through all of this, and there's much more that I could have said. Really what I'm doing is, it's striking, actually. I don't know why I'm surprising myself. I made it, but you have the Christian worldview, and then you have scientific faith, and then you have the cult of science. Now, as you're looking at that, what I want to do is I just want to summarize this for you, okay? So Bible-believing Christians, I want you to listen very, very carefully. If you abandon the first 11 chapters of Genesis, if you abandon them, this is the rubble, okay? This is the rubble. No sin, no fall, no Adam, and no second Adam. And the world in which you find yourself makes no sense whatsoever. And the cross that we all cherish, that is reduced to some bizarre form of torture. It's not a substitutionary atonement. And if the scientific faith is true, what have many of the speakers been saying this whole time? You know what we're doing? We're just dancing with our DNA. And that's all your life is. That's it. So, we have the Bible, which says, with God, all things are possible. And then you have the scientific faith, which says, with man, all things are possible. And, you know, I'm sitting there in the back, and I'm watching, I get fired up seeing all the teens and the little ones here, and they're all taking notes. Show of hands, where's the teenagers? Hands? Okay. Teenagers, have you been, little ones, have you been learning the Westminster Shorter Catechism? Anyone? Where's the Presbyterian family? Yeah. Hey, here, let me test your knowledge. What are the decrees of God? Homework assignment, okay? Next year, teens, next year, you, all your friends, come to the conference and have the entire Westminster Shorter Catechism memorized, okay? 100-point test. But the decrees of God are his eternal purpose, according to the counsel of his own will, whereby for his own glory he has foreordained whatever comes to pass. I almost melt when I hear that. The decrees of God. And he executes his decrees in the works of creation and providence. Huh. What are the decrees of the cult of science? I don't know. Well, I do know. I do know. It's what has been said. The decrees of science are matter in motion. Because that's all you are. You're a product of the molecular arrangement of the atoms that currently make you up. That's the decree of science. What kind of life is that? No, the Christian mind has a standard. The Christian mind has an unchanging standard in the Bible which says, okay, that's true, that's false, that's right, that's wrong, that's good, and that is wicked. Doesn't change. We have a standard, and the Christian mind has the lens in the Bible where they see all things through that lens, and it is God's unadulterated word. Oh boy, I could keep going here. So what's the appeal? What's the appeal? I mean, what's the appeal of, a life without ultimate meaning? What's the appeal there? Well, one of the last century's leading atheists, Bertrand Russell, in his essay, Why I Am Not a Christian, says this. He says, if you accept the ordinary laws of science, and I thought that was a Christian thing. Have you been paying attention in this conference? Laws of science, laws of thought, laws of logic. Well, without a God, there are no laws of thought. There are no laws of logic. We are, Jeff Durbin said this, to use the famous quote by Richard Dawkins, our lives are blind, pitiless indifference. Bertrand Russell, well, he pretty much says the same thing. You have to suppose that human life and life in general on this planet will die out in due course. It's a stage in the decay of the solar system. You see in the moon the sort of thing to which the earth is tending, something dead, cold, and lifeless. How's that for a nice Saturday morning devotional? To lift your spirits, right? An honest atheist will not deny this. But here's the thing, I don't think that the cult of science is just merely atheism. I don't think so. That would just be a lack of belief in God. There is no shortage of beliefs in secular science. Oh, they believe in a God. Yes, they do. Not the God of the Bible. But the God, their salvation comes from the scientific elite. Their salvation comes from the scientific elite, which is then, Luke, carried out through the state. Statism, secular science go hand in hand. So you have the cult of science, who salvation comes, not salvation from sin, salvation from poverty, salvation from sickness, salvation from disease, salvation from death even. And the instrument by which this is carried out is secular science. And the true church is the cult of science. And if you begin to question their doctrines, guess what that church does? Excommunication. Don't take my word for it. Just ask Stephen Meyer, the genius, intelligent design scientist, scientific philosopher. If you question their doctrines, you will be kicked out of the secular scientific realm like that. Like that. So what we have is, well, what's the appeal? I'm running out of time. What's the appeal? I think it boils down to this. When God is removed out of the picture, you are no longer accountable to God. You're no longer accountable. If there is no God, you're not accountable to anyone outside of yourself. No, I will be my own God. I will be the determiner of what's right and wrong. And Christ and his message of reconciliation, they are the chains that man must be liberated from. I'm going from memory now. I think it was Freud or Jung. One of them said, we must rid ourselves of the curse of Mount Sinai. What does Psalm 2 say? Let us burst our bonds. God's law, those are chains that need to be burst in this worldview. But the one enthroned in heaven laughs. So let me conclude here. I'm going to leave you with two things. It's a question of fruit and a question of authority. What we are experiencing is what Cornelius Van Til called an integration into the void. And what he meant was we are returning to this past evolutionary history. That's where we're descending. That's what we're witnessing. I mean, let's survey the last century. I mean, surely with this worldview, there's not any atrocities that could possibly come about, right? I mean, this type of thinking couldn't possibly lead to any atrocities. We emerge from a century that makes all previous centuries look like the Lord of the Flies, okay? That's the fruit of this thinking, the devaluing of human life, the devaluing of the significance of death, the reduction of sin to a biological problem, and a God who isn't just out of date, but who doesn't even exist. And the irony, these are my final moments, the irony of all this is what we see today is guys with beards wearing a dress who are shouting at people like you and me, calling us hateful, bigoted science deniers. I can't wrap my mind around it. I can't. How's that for clear thinking? So, it's a question of authority. We can all be stirred up by way of reminder. Who is your authority? Because there's only two options. It's the authority of God or it's the authority of man. It's the proclamation, thus saith the Lord, thus saith man. A personal God or an impersonal universe, you take your pick. I know where I'm placing my money. Where is the scholar? Where is the debater? Where is the scholar? Where is the wise man? Where is the debater of this age? Has not God made foolish the wisdom of the world? Indeed, he has, and he'll continue to do so. And we compare these arrogant people to the rock of our Savior Jesus Christ, and then we watch as they fade away into nothingness. Thank you.